Hello, beauties. Welcome to Moms Unboxed, a podcast where I unbox with you the how-tos, tips, and tricks to empower women to upgrade relationships, intimacy, and parenting. I'm your host, Melanie Caroline, a multi-dimensional woman, life coach, lover, and mom who's made a lot of fucking mistakes. If you want to live a sensual and liberated life, you've come to the right space. Don't forget to follow Moms Unboxed because you don't want to miss an episode. Hello, beauties. What is up? Welcome to your favorite day of the week. It is Wednesday, but whatever day you're listening to this, I hope you're having an amazing one. What are we unpacking today? All right, today we're going to be unboxing tips that will upgrade your relationship. In fact, I got 15 of them. So whether you're sitting in your car, driving, I hope you're listening. If you're at home and you could grab a pen, maybe write some down. You might find these useful, not only in your partnership, relationship, but with your children, coworkers, and your friends. All right, let's get to unpacking. All right, so the first one might be plain and simple to you, but when you're in a relationship for 11 years, sometimes being kind to one another can be difficult, okay? So something I learned through my divorce, sometimes there'd be some high stress levels. We had 3 kids, had a house, projects, careers, sometimes overwhelm can get to you. So my number one tip here is to be kind to one another. And you might think, well, yeah, Mel, that's pretty simple. But like I said, when we don't process the unwholesome feelings like stress, anger, overwhelm, anxiety, sometimes we take it out on the person that we most feel safe with. Okay, can we all agree that saying, what was it? We are unkind to the people that we love the most, and that's because we feel safe with them. We feel safe to share and express all the emotions without thinking about how that's going to affect our partner or our children. And so when we can kind of reflect on the way we're communicating, our tone of voice, our behavior, our body language, we might need a reminder to be kind. And there's nothing wrong with you for, having a tone or overwhelm or having these emotions, but there is something wrong with you if you're taking it out on people. So being kind to your partner, most importantly, being kind to yourself is always a number one. When we're kind to ourselves, we're kind to other people. When we're shitty to ourselves, we sometimes project that, and we can be unkind to other people around us. So as you move through the emotions, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the pod, being able to notice when you're not being kind is really important. And acknowledging that, right? Because it's not enough to just say, oh yeah, I'm being unkind. Okay, well, yeah, it's great that you have that awareness, but what are you doing to shift your behavior so that you are kinder to your partner and to your children? This is especially important if you want a long-lasting, healthy relationship. And it seems easy, like, all right, I'm a kind person, I could do that. And I'm sure you all are kind. No, I don't believe my audience are shitty people. Like, I believe that in our heart of hearts, we are kind people. Number 2, always communicate with one another. So there's a saying that I started to recognize within my own marriage, and it was, a silent marriage is not a happy marriage. Okay, let me repeat that because that seems super important to me right now. A silent marriage is not a happy marriage. Well, what does that mean? Like, we talk, we communicate. Yes, you might talk and communicate, but what are you talking and communicating about? And within my marriage, it was really easy for my husband and I, to talk about the bills, the kids, the house, and the projects. right? Those were like the 4 key things we were really good at conversating about. But when it came to, our values, morals, our interests, things that were going on in the world, I really love meditation and astrology and, healing modalities. And, I have so many arts and crafts interests. And, my husband was interested in building things and books and Star Wars. And, we didn't really come together to talk about the topics that we found interesting outside of the kids, the house, the job, the project. So if you are in a relationship, expand your communication topics. You were husband and wife or partner and partner before you started having children. And children, it takes up a lot of time, a lot of topic conversations. I think it's super important continuing to communicate so that your relationship isn't just about those key subjects. The third tip I have for you is notice any red flags. Well, you might say, well, we're already in a relationship. Maybe noticing red flags is a little too late. Let me tell you, noticing red flags within a relationship, I don't care if you've been together a year, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 11 years, 20 years, it does not matter. Noticing the red flags and the changes in your relationship is super important. I've learned this lesson the hard way, okay, y'all? I would get in these relationships. Of course, I noticed red flags, but I was like, I was young and I paid more attention to how I felt or, the fact that I was already in these relationships, so I couldn't really end the relationship because I had a difficult time ending relationships. I put up with a lot of bullshit in relationships because I didn't have the bravery, the strength, or even saw my own self-value to recognize that I deserved something way better. Okay, so what are some red flags in a relationship that you might want to be mindful of, regardless of where you're at in the relationship? 1, when someone is calling you names in a joking way. Like, haha, why do you gotta be so stupid? Or you're so dumb. Like, how many women have heard that? And you're like, oh, it's fine. They're joking. They don't really mean it. But what happens when saying you're stupid and you're dumb turns into you're a fucking bitch? Or, God, I can't stand you. I could go on with the name calling, but I think we all can agree we know what that can turn into. The second red flag, yelling at you when they lose their cool. We always want to come from a place of kindness. What happens when your partner is no longer able to process their feelings and be kind, where now they're taking their emotions out on you and they're yelling at you? This is not a great way to communicate, at all. Don't condone it. I've been in a few relationships where that was the communication style, was raising your voice and yelling. And now in my current relationship, I'm uber mindful of it. My partner has the tendency to get very activated and he'll start talking real fast and then his voice will start to raise. And I'm every single time I hear his voice raising, I give that kind, friendly reminder, hey, your voice is elevating and I can't have a conversation like this. I literally shut down. I will shut down as soon as any type of yelling happens, because I've had relationships previously where I would engage in that and I would meet their energy, match that yelling, and now I'm I can't do that anymore. I've grown beyond that type of communication. So if you do find yourself in a relationship where you're yelling or your partner is yelling or raising their voice, maybe a friendly reminder to yourself and to your partner, hey, I noticed that our voices are elevating right now. Is there any chance we can take a break and cool down? Or, hey, I'd like to continue this conversation, but I can't continue it if we're going to yell at each other. So bringing awareness to the situation is always helpful. The third red flag is not following through on the commitments. So if your partner says they're going to do something and they don't do it, that starts to dismantle the trust that you have in the relationship. Like, it might not be any big deal. Okay, so you asked your partner to go get you gas in your car before you started your workday the next day, and they said yes, they would do it, and then you get in your car the next morning and you're on E and you're already late. Like, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to blame your partner for not keeping the commitment that they said they would get you gas and now they're not. That's just a minuscule example. But if there's something, even more, like, that has more weight, and your partner, you just notice they're just not keeping their commitments. They say they're going to do something and then they don't. They say they're going to mow the lawn and then they don't. They say they're going to help you out with the laundry and then they don't. Like, this starts to whittle away at the trust and could cause frustration. So making sure that you and your partner are communicating, hey, I noticed that you've been saying you're going to help me out with things, but then you don't. I just want to know where this lack of commitment is coming from so that I know how to handle it and we can get back on the same page. I find oftentimes our partner wants to help. Like, they're coming from a place of, like, wanting to help. They have a desire to help. But on the other end, we might not notice how overwhelmed they already are. And they're just trying to help out and be kind and be a team. And they're making commitments that they can't really make because their own shit that they got going on. So making sure that you're communicating when you notice, like, hey, I notice you've been forgetting things a lot. Is there something I could do to help you remember? I have to do that to my partner all the time. Like, hey, did you make the doctor appointment that you're supposed to make? And they're like, no. Okay, is there something I could do? Can I send you a reminder text? Can I, do you want to set an alarm? We use alarms a lot in our house because we got a house full of people with ADHD, and we get to doing something else and then we forget to even switch over the laundry or something. So using an alarm to remind us, or even our calendars, is super helpful. The fourth tip on noticing red flags, noticing when you're not communicating well. So like I said, when you're joking, a quotation, joking in a way that is actually hurtful and mean, or when you're yelling or raising your voice, these are communication red flags, right? So being mindful of those, and being mindful when you're not communicating, like, that's a red flag in itself, right? Like I said on the earlier relationship tip, was a silent marriage is not a happy marriage. So if you find that you're not communicating at all, and y'all are just dusting things under the carpet, hoping it'll go away, well, what happens when you guys don't communicate, you don't talk about the problems, is that resentment starts building up, anger starts building up, frustration, loneliness. Like, when you're not communicating, it's just, you're setting yourself up, setting up the relationship, setting up the partnership. I wouldn't say necessarily to fail, but it's not, it's not one of trying to better the relationship. You have to communicate in a relationship. So when your partner is not communicating, that's a flag to you that says, okay, what is going on? Are they feeling something they don't feel safe to express? Being able to be on the same page with your partner with communicating is very important. Next red flag is lying. When you find that your partner is lying to you, that's a major red flag for me. That's like personally, that is my top red flag. I do not fuck around with liars. I used to. And it's like the most hurtful thing that a person could do is just sit there and lie to my face. I don't care if it's my partner, friends. I had a friend lie to me for weeks upon weeks about some shit. And she just sat there and stared in my eyes and just lied to me like I was a fucking moron, when I knew the truth of the situation the whole time. If you're lying to my face, that you're just a whole kind of different person that I don't appreciate being around. I get some attitude when it comes to liars. So being mindful of these red flags, calling you names, yelling, not following through on commitments, repeatedly hurting your feelings through those actions, not communicating, and lying. Please evaluate your relationships, even ones with family and friends. Like I said, these tips and these red flags are not exclusive to just your relationship. So the fourth tip to upgrade your relationship is always assuming good intentions. So if this assuming good intentions didn't even occur to me until after my husband and I separated, and I'm with an amazing partner now. But when we got in the relationship, I was healing. I was pretty toxic. Not intentionally, toxic, but I had some shit about me that really needed to be healed and shifted and evolved and released and all the things. And my partner would notice, my tone, or, I'd be the one that would be raising my voice. And he said, do you notice the way you're talking to me? And I'd sit there, I'd be like, no, what are you talking about? And he'd be like, you're raising your voice, or, the tone in which you're talking to me just isn't healthy. And I would get so defensive when he would bring awareness to my behavior. When when he'd say something to me about it, I'd be like, I'd get really defensive, my feelings would be hurt, and he noticed my energy shift. And so he'd say something to me quite frequently. He'd say, I love you and I care about you, and when I bring these things to your attention, I want you to assume good intentions. I'm never trying to hurt your feelings. I say these things with love, and I say these things because these are things that I would like to be shifted so that we could have a healthy relationship. And just that little saying, always assume good intentions, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, was mind-blowing to me. Absolutely fucking blew my mind, because I had a history of dating men who would hurt my feelings and who did not give a shit about my feelings. And so to be with a person that would kindly point these things out to me and reassure me and say, hey, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. Please know that, I have good intentions when I tell you these things. It was, I don't know, it changed the way I received his comments about me. And so I got to the point where I was like, oh, okay, he's not being malicious. And, he's right. I do need to be more aware of my tone of voice. And it helped me just soften, I didn't need to be defensive anymore. I didn't need to be upset. He wasn't trying to hurt my feelings. He wasn't saying he didn't like me. It was coming from a place of love. And so if you find that you and your partner are also trying to bring awareness to like the way you're communicating, the way you're behaving, and you have a partner that like every time you try to say something, they get defensive or they get upset and angry, one, be aware of how you're bringing these things to your partner, okay? Because if you are like not soft about it, you're not being kind about it, and you're saying, I'm really fucking tired of the way you're talking to me. Like, that's not helping the situation. That is not going to help your partner bring awareness to their own behaviors. But if you can come from a place of, kindness and love, and maybe phrase it like, I noticed that when you get upset or frustrated, your tone of voice changes. And I was wondering if you could work on being more mindful of that. And I love you and I care about you, and I say this because I want our relationship to improve, and I want our communication to improve. Saying it like that is so much different than the previous. So always assume good intentions. That was tip number 4 to upgrade your relationship. Number 5 kind of coincides with assuming good intentions, is on the receiving end to stay objective. I didn't know what objective and subjective meant until like 3 years ago. Because my partner would say, hey, I'd like you to work on the way you talk to me when you get frustrated or overwhelmed, and I'd be getting defensive, like I said, and I was so subjective. I took everything personally. Oh, he doesn't like me anymore. I might as well just fucking move out, blah, 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 whichever way I received it. And he'd go, along with the assuming good intentions and the kind way he spoke to me, he said, can you work on being more objective? I'd be like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. And being objective is just coming from a place of seeing their perspective and not taking things personally. Okay, y'all, I have my Oxford dictionary out, okay? Objective is considering the facts about something without being influenced by personal feelings or opinions. This took me a minute to really grasp, and it took my partner tons of times of reminding me to be objective when we're talking about one another's behaviors or communication style, or even just, being able to hear his perspective on the way that I was being. And like I said, I oftentimes would get defensive. And once you get defensive, it's very difficult to have a conversation because you're no longer hearing that person. You're receiving things from an angry point of view. You're just defensive, you're angry, you're not going to be able to hear your partner telling you things that, you could improve on. And so being objective allows both parties to feel safe to express things freely and honestly. And it's amazing the amount of communication that was expanded between my partner and I when we both came from a place of being objective. And with that number 4 tip to keep in mind is that your partner has good intentions. They love you. They're not trying to hurt your feelings. So being objective allows your partner to speak freely, allows you to speak freely, and come together and say, holy shit, had we not had that conversation objectively, I never would have known A, B, and C. Giving yourself permission to be open and curious about what your partner is saying will expand your communication. Number 6 on upgrading your relationship. So when you are communicating those things, you're staying objective, you're being kind to one another, letting things go. Okay, number 6, let that shit go. So when there is discord in the relationship, which is bound to happen, especially when you're together with someone long term, you will have things that come up in the relationship that will be upsetting, that will cause discord, but through communication and being objective and staying kind, you can work through those things. What oftentimes happens, though, is that people want to hold on to their feelings and their emotions. Some people just want to stay angry, y'all. You ever met that kind of a person where you're like, I can only apologize so many times, but if you cannot forgive me and you can't move through this with me, then there's nothing more I can do. And people want to stay angry. If you want to have a healthy relationship, work through those things, communicate about those things, have forgiveness when you're ready, but let it go. Let it go. I can't tell you how many people or how many couples I've talked to where the one person did something to betray the other person's trust, and that partner is still holding on to the resentment, they're still holding on to the anger, and only toxifies the relationship. So you have to communicate about those things. But once the communication has happened and y'all have moved past it, don't bring it up in the next argument. Gosh, like I said, I've talked to couples that happens. It happens a lot. And they bring up something that has happened, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. And they just can't seem to move past it because they're still holding on to something. And if you're holding on to something, that's fine. please identify what it is you're holding on to and why you keep bringing this up. Maybe you feel it's unresolved. But if you're just holding on to the emotions, and you've worked through it and you've done all that you can, like, stop bringing it up. Let it go. Because it's holding on to something like broken trust or something that they've done that was devastating to you, and you think you've resolved it, but you actually haven't. Work it out. Otherwise, like I said, let it go. Have grace, compassion, and forgiveness, and allow you and your partner to move forward. Because holding on to those things only keeps you stuck. It only keeps you doubting. It only keeps you frustrated. And it only you only grow that resentment even stronger the longer you cling to it. So, like I said, if you keep bringing it up, whatever that situation might be, ask yourself, what is still there? Why am I still holding on to it? And maybe it's because you don't trust anymore. And once trust is broken, it has to be rebuilt. But you're not allowing it to rebuild because you're still holding on to it all. Part of forgiveness and rebuilding is letting resentments go. If you have any questions about this, or a situation or a story you want to talk about or need help being guided through, DM me at I am Melanie Caroline. I'm always happy to coach you through this. Just let me know. All right, number 7 to upgrading your relationship goes along with letting that shit go. It's releasing unwholesome emotions. This doesn't have to be between you and your partner. It can be, it could all be within yourself. You might have some bitterness built up from family issues or from your career, your coworkers. So identifying any kind of bitterness or frustration, shame, guilt that you might be holding onto or your body might be storing will also have an impact on your relationship. And relationships flourish the most when you both are happy. And when you take responsibility for your own emotions and your own happiness. Because let me tell you, okay, you may agree or disagree, but your partner is not responsible for your happiness. So if you're waiting for your partner to pull you out of something or make you happy, that's not their responsibility. That is your responsibility. And part of owning your own emotions is releasing unwholesome emotions. You might wonder, well, how do I do that, Mel? Well, you do that by going through your own healing, for having a relationship with yourself and identifying where you might have those unwholesome emotions stored within your body. Where do these emotions come up for you? Maybe you're triggered by a certain situation or a certain person or a circumstance. It could be even a date, time, and place where you become triggered. It's your responsibility to identify where things need to be adjusted, released, and shifted and forgiven. So it starts with discovering it, becoming aware of it. And then you want to decide, how do you want to heal from these things? Do you even want to heal from these things? Some people are not ready to have things surface. It takes a great deal of work and mental fortitude to heal unwholesome emotions. And when you are ready to release unwholesome emotions, communicate with your partner what it is you're going through, what it is you're processing. And this was something I didn't do enough of in my own marriage, where I'd be healing from my parents, I'd be healing from my father wound, my mother wound, my sister wound, and it was the peak of my healing through these things that my marriage ended. And it took a lot out of me to really surface these, have these things surface, and for me to heal and let go of them and release them. So there's somatic body work you can do. There's meditation, there's journaling. Something I enjoy doing with my clients is called Colors of Emotions, where we literally do art to express how we're feeling. And, having a support system through these things is so important. And your partner can be your support system, but they cannot be responsible for your healing process. So that was tip number 7, y'all. Releasing unwholesome emotions creates a healthier relationship and lifestyle. And you become a better version of you. Tip number 8, allow you and your partner time to process. So if you do find yourself releasing emotions, or your partner is also going through some things, maybe they're depressed, maybe they're sad or frustrated, or they're feeling some type of shame and guilt about something, allow your partner time to process. You and your partner do not need to be constantly around each other. And we'll talk about that tip in a minute. Allow your partner time to get away, to do what they need to do to move through these emotions, to release, to take some time, to take some space from the house, take some space from the relationship, the job, or whatever. They need to go on a weekend getaway? Hell yes. Do what you need to do so that you can feel balanced and grounded. Well, my husband and I, we used to get in some hella discord when we first got together. Like, I should have seen those red flags, y'all. There was some shit going on at the beginning of the relationship, and we would get in some real bad tiffs. And he would leave the house afterwards. And oh man, there was not more that made me so angry from him leaving the house. Why did I get angry? Because I had abandonment issues. So I thought each time he left the house, he was not coming back. I just felt like he was leaving me. He was abandoning me. He didn't care about me. When really, he just needed time to process. And instead of being like, okay, I get it. You got to leave the house, go for a walk, whatever you need to do. I'll be here when you're ready. Instead of being supportive, it was, why the fuck are you leaving the house? Why don't you just stay with me? Work this out. Like, I took it, I took his leaving as like kind of a slap in the face to our relationship and to me. And it had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with him just needing time to cool down. So if you do find that you have a partner that leaves, please, think about shifting that mindset of this is what they need to do to cool down and come back to the relationship in a more peaceful way so that we can communicate more effectively. Because you can't communicate effectively with all the anger in the air. You know that term, what is it? Like, you can feel, or you can cut the air with a knife or something. I hope y'all understand what I'm saying. But like, you can enter a room or be around a couple and you can tell when shit's just not right. Like, you can feel the energy. Like, they haven't communicated. There's some shit build up. Like, you can, especially me as like an empath, I feel energy, y'all. I feel it real well. And so it's always important to find the best way for both of you to process things so that you can move forward healthier, so that you can communicate better. So allow your partner time to process, whether they're going through their own thing or some shit's going down in the relationship. Just be okay with that. Be okay with time and space. Tip number 9 to upgrade your relationship is take accountability, y'all. Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how many partnerships I've talked to where it's like, well, they didn't say sorry. And I'm so mad because they haven't apologized. Here's the thing. You cannot make anyone take accountability. That person has to take accountability for their own actions when they're ready. Because a forced apology is not really an apology, right? They're not feeling remorse. They're feeling obligated. Let me say that again, because I feel like that was hella powerful. They're not feeling remorse. they're feeling obligated to apologize. So when you do get into strife with your partner and y'all have been arguing or having a heated discussion and you feel like you are owed an apology, I just want you to think about your partner simply may not feel the need to apologize. Or maybe they feel like you need to be the one to apologize first. And then it gets to this tit for tat of who should apologize to who when. You don't want to have a relationship where your partner feels like they have to apologize. You would love for them to feel sympathetic about the fact that they may have hurt your feelings and want them to apologize for your hurt feelings. But you cannot force this. And you certainly don't need to add to the frustration by being mad at them because they didn't apologize. Instead, maybe ask, hey, when we had this heated conversation, do you feel like that went well? Do you feel like we received each other's comments well? Because, I want to apologize for my part of that conversation. And oftentimes, if you feel like you need to apologize for something, they will also then reflect on their actions and take accountability for something they said or their tone or raising their voice. They'll take accountability for their part, and you should also take accountability for your part as well. So that was tip number 9. Take accountability and apologize. Number 10 on the tips to upgrade your relationship is allowing for autonomy. This is something I spoke about a little earlier, is allowing each other space and time. And I find that relationships are most healthy when there's autonomy in the relationship. When y'all are doing your own thing, living your own life, y'all have your own friends, you have your own interests, you have your own hobbies. And then you come together, and that's when you communicate about your day, about what you did, about your interests, about new friends you met or the friends that you hung out with. You're like, holy shit, she has her own dreams, her own goals. There is so many times, okay, in a relationship where I see, especially women, they break up in a relationship, right? A relationship ends, and then they get with a new man, and suddenly all the man's interest becomes the woman's interest, and she don't have her own interests. Like, her life becomes about him. And if you are, a listener where you're like, yeah, I can identify with that. As soon as I started this new relationship, all his fishing hobbies became mine, hunting hobbies became mine, his welding interests became mine, his sports became mine. Like, it's like, wait, where's your identity and autonomy within yourself? What are your interests, girlfriend? What interests are you sharing with your partner? Like, I don't know that men, and I'm speaking strictly to men, but honestly, I speak to other partners in general. I don't know that they really like your whole life being about them. I don't know. That'd be a very interesting question to pose on like social media or Reddit. It's like, do you like your partner being all about you, or do you like a partner that values autonomy? Because my partner straight up told me when we got together, he's like, I need a person that is independent, who has their own interests and who has their own dreams and goals and values autonomy. So if you are in a partnership where, you find that you might be like feeling a little claustrophobic by your partner, or you're like, hey, I really want to be able to do my own thing tonight. I kind of would love it if you found your own hobby, or, whatever it might be. Identify that and then reach a goal to like have more autonomy in that relationship. Hang out with your friends, girl. Dive deep into your self-care, which is my tip number 11 for improving a relationship. Say yes to self-care. Psychology Today defines self-care as prioritizing your emotional, physical, and spiritual need over others. So over your partner, your kids, your family, your work. You're making yourself a priority. I had a family member ask me, well, who's the most important in your life? And my response was, Well, myself. And he straight looked at me and said, "Are you sure?" And I was like, well, yeah, my kids are my absolute world, of course. But if I'm not caring for myself, I'm not caring for my kids as well. And what kind of model am I being if I don't eat, if I don't sleep right, if I don't work out, if I don't do my spiritual practices? My kids can tell when mommy's getting frustrated and overwhelmed and anxious. And those things peak for me when I'm not caring for myself, when I'm not exercising, when I'm not eating right, when I'm not meditating, when I'm not going on hikes, when I'm not doing my hobbies and my crafts and things. I am a better person when I'm taking care of myself. I'm better for my partner when I'm taking care of myself. I wanted to go to the gym with my partner because, I love spending time with my man. I love it. But when he wanted to go work out was at 5 in the fucking morning. And let me tell you, I am not a morning person at all. Like, I need to find more hours in my day for my businesses, but I really struggle getting up in the morning. So I would force myself to get up and go work out with my partner. And in doing that, of course, I felt good. I got up in the morning. I went and worked out. But then I was also sacrificing my sleep. So there has to be a balance, right? I recognized that I needed to get my own gym membership so I can go work out in the time of day that was best for me. So I wasn't sacrificing 2 hours of sleep in the morning to go work out with him. And I had to be okay with not hanging out with him during his workouts because it just didn't work for me. So recognizing when in your day is best for self-care is important. And prioritizing that is important. And maybe you don't go work out or work out every day, but maybe you make it a goal to drink more water or to go to bed earlier. Identify where you can improve your self-care. Because like I said, self-care, taking care of you is so important, especially as a mom. When you're taking care of yourself, you have more patience for your babies. Let me tell you. You will notice a difference in how you respond to your emotions, how you respond to stress, how you respond to overwhelm. It all makes a difference. Tip number 12. Have some fucking fun, y'all. Have some fun. Oh my goodness. There's so much in this life where we have obligations. We have priorities. We have to work. We have to be a mom. We have to be a good partner. We have to be good to ourselves. And sometimes that doesn't include fun, right? Driving my kids everywhere for sports is not fun for me. Okay, I love watching them. That's cool. It makes my heart happy to see my children happy. But would I say that's personally fun for me? Yes and no. Yes and no. What's fun for me would be like taking my kids to go for a hike, spending quality time with them. Let's go go-karting. Let's go for a nice walk. Let's go play a board game. And I recognized probably like 4 or 5 years ago that I forgot what it was like to have fun. I was so stressed. I was anxietied out. I was overwhelmed. I felt so much shame, so much guilt that I forgot to have fun. I forgot to be affectionate towards my kids. And so I've made it a mission now to identify what is fun for my kids and meeting them on that level. What is fun for me, and also having a balance of my kids meet me where mommy has fun. And same with my partner. What might not be fun for my partner, he still does. Like, I love looking at antique stores. I love going out to farmers markets. That shit's fun for me. It might not necessarily be his number one, but he meets me there. He goes with me. So finding things that both of you can enjoy and have fun with is so important to cultivating and maintaining a flirtatious relationship, a loving relationship. So, flirt, hold hands, sext, go on dates, chase one another around the house. My partner is a big ass child, let me tell you right now. He is a child in the best ways, okay? He's an adult when he needs to be an adult. He's a man when he needs to be a man and all that. But he loves joking and giving me a hard time and chasing me around the house and grabbing my ass in the middle of public, or, he just finds ways to make me laugh. Make each other laugh. That is so important. Make your kids laugh. Tickle them. Make them giggle. Do Play-Doh with them. Cook with them. Make some cookies. My kids love baking and doing stuff like that. They love going to the park and going for bike rides and going to the water park. When you're having fun, you're making memories. You're making good core memories, okay, for your family. And that is so important. There is a meme on Instagram that was going around for a while, and it said, we're so busy trying to find someone to grow old with that we forget it's how important it is to find someone to grow young with, to stay young with. And that's my goal and mission. Shit, I want to stay young. I know my body's going to age, but my spirit can still be young. My grandma is 88, and she tells me all the time, she goes, I'm still young. I still feel so young. She goes, when I turn 90, that's when I'm old. I'll define myself old when I turn 90. Because her spirit, she loves having fun, and she loves going to the Goodwill, and she loves going to antiques. When she's doing things that she enjoys, she feels young. And I love that. Which brings me to my tip number 13, y'all. Date your partner, okay? We are so busy, like I said, so busy being parents that we forget the role of husband and wife, or we forget the role of partner and partner, or even our own self. So take the time to date each other. Now in my current partnership, I notice how important it is to take him on dates. Traditionally, the woman wants the man to take action and to take them on a date. And this was my mentality in my marriage a lot of the time, where now I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that way anymore. If I want to spend time with my partner and he just can't seem to find the time, or he's just not taking action on it, or even just the plain and simple fact that it is not the man's responsibility to plan all the dates. If you want to have a good time with your partner, you want to spike that fun, spike the connection, spike the spontaneity. Surprise your man, surprise your partner with a date. Plan it yourself. I'm sure they will be so appreciative, because men and other partners, they deserve to feel special too. They want to feel wanted too. They want to be surprised too. Okay, so I think this is a dynamic that needs to shift in a relationship, is not relying on one person to plan the dates, to make sure that the fun is happening. Both y'all need to plan the dates and make sure that the fun is being had in the relationship. And it doesn't even have to be a date that you take them out on. Money can be tight, especially when you have kids and a mortgage and a car note and all the things. Like, set up the dining table super hella cute and make a nice dinner, get a sitter for the kids, get them out the house, and or do an art project, or there's tons of couples games that you can do together to have fun and connect with one another. If you're thinking about right now, like, oh, when was the last time we did do something? Make it your goal this week to plan a nice evening with your partner. Do something that both of you enjoy. Express how grateful you are for one another. Which leads me to tip number 14. Be grateful for one another. Being married, raising children, caring for the bills, the house, all the things, it's not easy. The business of life can really get to you, and you forget to share your gratitude with your partner. So many things become an expectation, especially after a while in a marriage. It's like you get into each other's roles. One person does the laundry and the dishes, the other person does gardening, the other person's taking care of the kids, or you're both taking care of the kids. You can create great teamwork with these things, kind of getting into the roles of life. But what you don't want to do with those expectations is forget to be grateful. My husband is so good at projects and getting things done. He's a doer. He's a fantastic craftsperson, and he enjoys those things. But it's like I wanted all these projects done in the house, but I didn't hold the energy of gratitude. Like I would say thank you. Of course, I would express how much I was appreciative. But I didn't hold the energy of being so, so grateful. It was almost like, well, he's a great to-doer, and can you do this project, please? It was like project after project after project, and just not showing enough gratitude. And so when your partner does do things like, you both are picking up around the house, you both are paying bills, they go and get you gas just so you don't have to do it, or they bring you home flowers or a coffee. Like, express how grateful you are through your body, not just your words. Like, give them the longest hug. Just squeeze them. Like, show how grateful you are for all that they do. Which leads me to number 15. The last tip to upgrade your relationship is express your appreciation. So, I'm sure many of you have heard of the 5 love languages. When you expressing your appreciation with your partner, do it in a way that they feel appreciated. So oftentimes people want to express their love language by doing the thing that makes them feel loved. For example, if you're a person that really enjoys gift giving and you go out and buy your partner a gift and they're like, oh, thank you, I really appreciate that. And they're not showing how amazing it makes them feel to receive a gift, and they're just like, oh, okay, and you have this expectation that they're going to be jumping up and down, and they're really not. It's because you're not expressing your appreciation in a way that really touches their heart. You're doing it in a way that touches your heart, which is great if you were receiving the gift, right? You'd feel like you're on cloud 9 if you were receiving the gift. But you give your partner a gift, and they say thank you, they're grateful, but it's not the response or it didn't have the impact in which you thought it would. Make sure that you're understanding how they receive appreciation. So I can give my partner a gift all day long. He would be appreciative, but it doesn't fill up that love tank. He loves physical touch and words of affirmation. Words of affirmation is his number one. He wants to hear how grateful I am for all the things. That's what makes him feel appreciated. The gifts, I remember I bought him a gift for Father's Day. It sat on the dresser for a year before I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to move this now. It's not touched. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But making sure you are expressing your appreciation for your partner, through ways in which, and it might not even be the 5 love languages. There's so much more beyond that. But just to use that as an example, you have quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, and the 5th is gift giving. So there's also a survey on Gary Chapman's website that you can do to identify what your love language is. If that's something you're interested in, you can look that up so that you can have more knowledge of how your partner receives love and what is the best way to show your appreciation towards one another. And I just think it's so important, expressing your appreciation for one another. It's something you definitely want to be doing in order to, help your partner feel loved and appreciated, and acknowledging that in a way that really touches their heart is so important to having a healthy relationship. So those are the 15 tips to upgrade your relationship. I'm just going to say them one more time without all the talk. I'm just going to list them out Be kind to one another. Always communicate with one another. Notice any red flags. Always assume good intentions. Stay objective. Letting shit go. Release unwholesome emotions. Allow you and your partner time to process. Take accountability and apologize. Allow for autonomy. Saying yes to your own self-care. Have some fucking fun. Dates are for both partners to plan. Being grateful and expressing your appreciation. I really hope that these tips, I hope that you can implement these tips, or you can contemplate these tips and how you can use these tips to improve your own relationship and your own relationships with your kids, your coworkers. Like I said, these are not exclusive to a romantic partner. These are things that you can implement across the board. So I hope this was good for y'all, and tune in next Wednesday. Have a good week, y'all. Thank you again for joining me for another episode of Moms Unboxed. If you have a topic or relationship question, connect with me at I am Melanie Caroline. And don't forget to follow Moms Unboxed. May you live a liberated, sensual, and unboxed life. I'll be chatting with you next Wednesday for another episode. Until the next time, sunshine.